Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahe Tejasvina Vadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May we be nurtured together. May we be nourished together. May we strive together. May our learning shine today. May we not quarrel. Peace. All right, we're going to finish off with chapter 3 today. Sum it up. Karma Yoga of the Gita. To bring this to a conclusion for Karma Yoga. Okay, so we stopped here. If you renounce the world, you will quickly return to it for want of the requisite maturity. That's because there are certain tendencies that are still lurking in the mind, and by the appropriateness of the environment, when the mind's exposed to that environment, then it will suddenly start contemplating about engaging in that worldly object. So that means that if one doesn't fully gain enough experience in the world, then the irony is this is not going to work, because there will suddenly be, a pull towards something else in life, something that seems better or something that seems more appealing based on likes and dislikes of the individual. So that means that the irony is, on one hand, if one doesn't fully play out all of the desires, then what happens, and they they backtrack into self-knowledge, then there's still desires lurking in the background, and suddenly, as soon as they're exposed to an environment that symbolizes that liking, then there will be a tendency to take myself to the world and getting involved with it. So there is a certain level of experience that's required in Vedanta. I know one teacher who, actually Nima, she was 23, and she found about the Vedanta course by Dayananda, and she asked him, can I attend for 3 years, residential? And he said, no, you need to go back to the world and gain experience. And she was kind of disappointed, understandably so. And then she came back when she was 30, and she asked Dayananda again, and he said immediately yes. That's obviously because Dayananda already knew that there's a certain, you can tell when you look at a person where they're at. You can just generally get a general idea. If they're too young, then you just say no, because there's not enough experience. Otherwise, they'll go into Vedanta and then come out, and then it will be back to worldly chasing of desires. So that means she needed to get some experience in the world first. So that's exactly what we're saying here. With you need to first renounce. You need to not skip. There's no skipping. Yeah. All right. Karma yoga is right action plus right attitude. Okay, see, you're not going to apply right action, right? Unless there's a right thinking, because thinking invokes action. You don't have the other way around. See, every action is instigated by a thought that precedes it. So that means if that thought is not in alignment with Ishvara, then that thought is in alignment, there's only one other choice, with the tendency, with the vasana. And when the thought is aligned with the vasana and not with Ishvara, then what happens is one ends up performing the action that represents that vasana, which is not in accordance or is discord to the whole, to the harmony of the whole. And that ends up causing karma, because every action ends up creating a result that is not conducive to one's well-being. So that ends up into suffering. So we can see how these tendencies that are in the mind, that are still dominating the person's behavior, end up causing one to contemplate those tendencies, and those contemplations end up turning into actions, and then those actions end up being expressed through the 5 organs of action, through your hands, through your speech, and your feet, sex organs, and the anus. And that ends up having a consequence. Every action has a consequence. And that consequence can either be punya karma or papa karma. That means it can either be an action that has an appropriate, a healthy return, or an unhealthy return. So that means if one's tendencies keep driving them towards the world, which are not in accordance with Ishvara, then they're just going to keep suffering over and over again. So it's we're reiterating the importance of these tendencies, how they control the person's life. Okay, right action. So we're going to cover right action and right attitude. Right action. Okay, take care of your external situation, but choose actions that are appropriate to your inner growth. So that's a nice formula there. And the formula is, first, let's take care of your external situation. Very down-to-earth statement. Like, what is there not to take care of? You got to take care of your bills, your family, your own health, your car service, for example, keeping your employees happy, if you're a business person, or your colleagues happy. So take care of your external situation, but it says, choose actions that are appropriate to your inner environment, or your inner growth, or your inner environment, because your environment is, the health of the environment is just the symbolism of how you're responding back. So that means that if we take a down-to-earth statement like take care of your external situation, then okay, that's got to be done in the world. But then how, like Gareth, you brought up last week, how do I deal with it when there's a corporate situation and there's sort of a adharmic air going on? It has to sort of, it's not entirely, at least in your knowledge, it's not entirely coherent with what is good and what is right. So sometimes, marketers will use sexy images of flesh and photoshopped woman in order to convince the audience that this is a good product. And then this figure will rest next to a watch or a car or even on TV, just to symbolize. So is that really honest if you think about it? Yeah. See, so that means the person behind this work, this marketing piece, actually themselves, if they walk in and they suddenly get told about Dharma, that's going to cause a conflict with their job. You see, because now they've been doing this in a manner that is not entirely honest, and suddenly they're told, okay, well, is this really helping? Is this product really helping everyone, or is it just meant to satisfy the quarterly statements of the investors? And then the guy starts thinking, oh no, what do I do now? So that means that it leads into a certain next stage of life. So one has to start making decisions. Do I really want to stay here? Because now I'm suffering. I'm going against what I know to be wrong. So that means the life itself will start to slowly change, you see? So we're not just saying about sticking around. We're saying stick around, that's fine. But amongst with that also comes about, as I said last week, creating a simple life that represents that symbolism of what is right, what is good. Is this in the highest and greatest good for me and my whole environment? Because I am not separate as a person from the environment. That means if the environment is injured by my actions, that means I am simultaneously disrespecting myself because I am not apart from the environment. This person that's doing is Ishvara, a composition of 5 elements, put together intelligently by this cause, Ishvara. The environment is put together with 5 elements by this intelligent cause, Ishvara. So that means if I'm injuring the environment, I'm injuring Ishvara. But I'm not separate from Ishvara. That means I'm injuring myself. Yeah, so we can see how this slow progress, the more we delve into the knowledge, the more we start to question our work, our efforts. Is it completely in line with what is good and what is right? And one more thing is this action increasing or decreasing peace? That's an easy question. Like, is what I'm about to do now, is this going to add to love, or is it going to create disharmony or discord or disconnection or conflict? Because nobody likes to feel that sense of contraction when there's a confrontation and then you just, it doesn't get fully resolved. Nobody likes that because Dharma is built in. Nobody likes to get hurt. So that means it is up to the individual as a karma yogi to ask themselves, okay, I don't expect them to change because they may not know this knowledge. They may not have it, but I do. That's what you're saying to yourself, but I do. So that means it is up to me to modify certain behaviors that would lead to peace instead of conflict. You see? If it's to be, it's up to me. That's what we're saying.
Don't play that dosage rule.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Give more than you take. See, we don't necessarily mean give more, give resources and give your money away and give all that. Think about what you do have. You have knowledge. You have a certain, for example, Xinyi, she may not realize, but she brings these flowers here, and I actually appreciate it. It actually makes my time here a lot better behind the table. So it's small things like that we don't think about, but they do make a big difference. That means everyone has something to contribute, and that is really simple because you're just contributing your personality, you're contributing what you like, and there's always someone who likes or appreciates what you like. Okay, I'll tell you a story. Okay, two Buddhists are approaching a river, and there's a stream. It's the current's somewhat fast, and they have no problem crossing the river. They need to cross the river and continue their journey, and they see a lady who's afraid to cross the river. Now they made an oath to each other. They said that they will never touch a woman because that's they have their reasons, and they will not engage with a woman because that's just their sort of code of conduct. So one of the Buddhists sees a woman, and he obviously recognizes that she needs help, and she asks him, can you help me cross the river? Can you carry me? Now of course the Buddhists they have compassion. So the Buddhist thinks about it and goes, well, I made an oath not to get involved with women, but at the same time, I follow my principle, my value, my higher value of compassion. So I'm going to help her. I'm going to put her on my shoulder, and I'm going to take her across the river. And so, they walk across, and also the monk friend walks along. So he puts her down, goes, good luck with your journey, and she thanks him. And then the two monks continue on their journey into the meadow. An hour later, plus minus, the other monk can't hold it anymore. He just has to speak up and confront the other Buddhist monk and say, why did you, we made an oath. Why did you help her? We said we don't touch women. We don't speak to women. And the other monk said, I've been carrying her for 20 seconds across the river, and you've been carrying her for the last 1 hour. So that means that if there is no higher value, then the mind will default to the last incident. That's what the mind does, because the mind's always trying to fill itself with content. So that means if we don't have deities or some kind of karma yoga as a social service or some kind of a symbol that we can always look up to, a higher altar that represents Ishvara, that represents that divine, whatever it is for you, then the mind, just like for that Buddhist monk, is going to resort to the last incident, and it's going to stay there contemplating on that incident. Why? Because there's no higher value to resort to. So the message is, unless there is something to come back to that is symbol of divine, that's something that it expresses, it induces within you reverence, a sense of awe, a sense of humbleness, If that is not there, then just like with that Buddhist monk, it is going to be contemplating for hours and hours on the last incidents. Whether it's small things like a traffic jam, someone just made a rude cutoff, just something like that. It stays in the mind. You know what I'm talking about. Or even just a small kind of sarcastic comment by a colleague, and then they walk off. And then it just comes back in the mind, and then you just and the more we think about it, the more it starts to amplify. So that means if we don't have that higher altar, that higher something that we can revere, then, sorry, but it's just going to be an endless battle with the mind. That means you need to immediately go back to something that you revere, something that represents Ishvara. In this case, we have examples like worship your deities. Deities, whatever it is for you, I don't know what it is for you, but find something. It can be even an animal or your siblings or mom, dad, or Krishna or Jesus or Buddha or Allah. It doesn't matter. It's meaningful for you. And you don't have to tell others what it is. It's personal to you. Contributing to your parents. This is another one, because if you think about it, you're sitting here, right? Because your parents have spent or invested quite a large portion of their life to upholding you, to keeping you safe. So that means that all of the privileges that we enjoy ultimately comes from our parents. And if you think about it, here you are sitting in this class, and the class is Vedanta. And the class is about fulfilling the highest purpose, the highest mission in life. So that means whatever family you come from did extremely good to bring you up to a situation where somehow you got into this situation, basically. Because if you think about it, if you were born, let's say, with an abusive dad or a mom who just wasn't that caring, then that scar would have stayed a long time, and that would have influenced the child itself, causing them to not show up, to engage in the worldly manners, in the worldly. Not there's anything wrong with it, but it's just that you wouldn't be here. That's the point. Do or contribute to the culture, to the. It can even be it says Vedic culture because it's from the Bhagavad Gita, so we talk Vedic language. But it also means contribute to as a prayer to whatever, as I said, symbolizes that reverence for you. In this case, it's a Mahatma. Mahatma simply means a teacher or a guru. I personally do that all the time because I realize every moment how grateful I am that Ishvara has brought me these two teachers to finally stop the endless chase, endless seeking. Do social service. That means that, you already know there's a few things that elders sometimes contribute. They clean the beach, or they go to the forest and they pick up branches. There's every Sunday, every fortnight, there's a social, if you look in your local directory, you'll see free contribution services that you can contribute to. So see the point is, because you're surrendering your ego, you're not getting paid for it, but you're saying, I'm taking my effort, my time, my energy, my money, and I'm giving it to that one who caused me to be here, Ishvara. That means I, who is of Ishvara, am contributing back to Ishvara. It's all Ishvara's creation. Yeah, so that's the point of these bullet points. It's not to waste your time. It's just to offer yourself back to that one who has given you. Taking care of the environment. Right attitude. This is the second part of the Karma Yoga. Okay, we got two parts. We got the exoteric, that's the general interpretation of why to engage in the right attitude. And that is to refrain from pride. As in, I feel proud doing what I'm doing. I'm offering social service. I am important in this community. This community relies because of me. This community enjoys because of my effort. All of that owns back to the ego trying to, aggrandize, increase its status. And the second meaning which is the one we're interested in, what attitude means, is gratitude for a gift of life. Why? Because everything is, as I said, Ishvara. Everything is of the 5 elements, intelligently designed. If you find me one thing that is not intelligently created, one thing that you can, even something like a rock, right? You think, where's the intelligence there? But think about all of the millions of years that put that rock together through different pressures and different, the amount of the water they had to carve out and then chip off, and then, the forces of tectonic plates squeezing. All of that is just intelligence. So for that, we have this gratitude for the gift of life, for living, for being born in order to end the journey of seeking, for being alive in order to appreciate. Okay, work as worship, enjoyment of employment. See, these two fit very well under attitude, because when we see work as worship or enjoyment of employment, we think, oh, now I've got to change my job because I don't enjoy it. I don't enjoy what I'm doing. That's not what it, even though it's not excluded, because as I said from the beginning, if one suddenly has dharma very strong and they find themselves in a position that contradicts that, then one has to make a decision. They'll just keep suffering. But the second part is work as worship means the attitude towards that. No different than towards social service. You're never working for yourself, actually. But see, the ego thinks I am collecting for myself. That's how the ego thinks. This is my work, my effort, and my time. So now I am giving my work, my effort, my time to my boss, to my employees, and it's mine. I've done all of this. But in fact, none of it is yours, because you didn't even create your hands, which you're using to click the mouse button or to shake hands and make the deal or to drive the car. You didn't create any of that. So work as worship means that looking at it in a way as to how can I use this position that I find myself in called work, which is normal part of life, to appreciate Ishvara.
Having reverence for what you're doing.
That's right. Having reverence and appreciation and gratitude for what you are provided. Yeah. And prasad means, prasadaha means gift. That means taking whatever happens, good or bad, it doesn't matter, as a gift. Life is Ishvara's instructions. This is what Ishvara says. Good is good and bad is also good. Yeah. Because how, yeah, Garrett, I know. Yeah, that's your favorite statement, right?
Life-changing statement, that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, because see, we use our own likes and dislikes to assign what is good and what is bad. But that's not accurate, because for one person is good what is bad for you, and what is good for you is bad for another. So that means we use our likes and dislikes to justify what is good and not good.
It is what it is, and this is good.
That's right. And even if you think about it, all arguments stem from that one simple mistake, is that one likes certain thing, a certain object, and the other doesn't share the equal amount of liking, and so that creates a very hostile or a spacious environment that opens up to conversation of disagreement. So that means I cannot say you are wrong just because I don't share your likes. There's no logic there. And neither can you disagree with me just because I do not share your dislikes. Yeah. So it's not a valid reason. And if you think about it, all likes and dislikes or arguments all stem from that one simple principle. You like something and I don't like that. And see, if you think about it, what are friends? Like, what they share likes. And as soon as the one dislike comes, let's say he comes back from a country and suddenly his whole world has changed. And suddenly he no longer shares those same likes. They're no longer friends. That means it was a superficial relationship from the start. Karma yoga reduces dependence on objects and develops self-confidence and self-reliance. Okay. When you like something and you really enjoy what you're doing, you feel self-esteem. There's a high self-esteem there. Isn't that true in your experience? When you have a position in whatever it is, in a society, career, or in a family, and you know what you're doing. You know, it's like, I would not offer this position to anyone else. I love it. And you do it very well, it builds confidence, doesn't it? Yeah. So that means if I go even one step further and I say, okay, I do like what I do in terms of my work, but what if I were to even further look at it as prasad, as Ishvara? That means now it's not only bringing you confidence, but it's now bringing you joy for what you are doing. Attitude change. We're changing it from what can I get out of this to how can I give. That's all we're doing. Because Ishvara, by default, is, look at everything around you is given. Everything's given. I said, I think it was last week, replicate that. Ishvara gives, therefore give. And that leads to that accordance with Ishvara's laws straight. If I take, then I'm out of alignment, and that causes automatic suffering. Because Dharma is created by Ishvara, and no living being is an exception to Dharma. Everyone has that built in. So if they violate Dharma, which was created by Ishvara, which is a giver, and I violate that, then automatically the barometer is suffering. That means whenever there's a suffering of any kind in life, that is a good symbol that I'm out of alignment with what I should be doing. And it opens up the door to investigate. Could there be another way? Am I missing something? Is there a blind spot that I may be avoiding?
Is the Bhagavad Gita most explicit of the Upanishads about that? Because it's very. Is that where you'd find that? Because I'm kind of keen to know.
Which statement exactly?
Yeah, I'm interested in like the Upanishads. They sort of seem to.
This is from the Gita.
Which is the Gita.
Yeah.
They seem to reproduce similar ideas and reinforce.
Oh yeah, every chapter of the Gita is called an Upanishad.
Oh, okay.
Actually.
So, but the thing on Karma Yoga, they're explicit about that. Is it mainly in the Bhagavad Gita?
This is all from the Gita. That's right.
But other Upanishads don't go into that.
The other Upanishads are more about. Yeah, they do, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like take the Chandogya Upanishad. Chapter 6 is about the final truth, and the chapter before is how to live on earth to communicate well with other people. Yeah. So, and there's this huge text just on that, chapter, I don't know, 3 or 4 or something.
So it's right through the Upanishads.
It's right through, yeah. It's all. There's nothing you'll find in the Gita that contradicts the Upanishads, by the way. Yeah. That's why it's called the 3 great texts, the Brahma Sutra, the Upanishads, and the Bhagavad Gita. They all comprise the Vedanta.
Was the Gita written as a sort of poetic verse after someone had imbibed the Upanishads?
Yeah, it's called the Itihasa. That means does it happen. But it's also a shruti, a smriti, which means it's used by the experience of the writer, Vyasa, who wrote the Mahabharata, and he also used the Upanishads and also brought together the Gita to explain the Upanishads in order to suit the changing age. Because the Upanishads were just very direct, and they were for an extremely sattvic age, yuga. So what happened was, after the agriculture and commercialization started taking over, this was less appropriate. So someone needed to do something to bring it into more of a story, a more of a sung version. So that means the Gita is the Upanishads, but it's adapted for the new mind, you see? But it shares the same message.
A bit like Shakespeare, taking basic principles of life and
really?
into a theatrical...
He did that, huh?
Yeah. Well, that's where you can feel it when you do your best. Yeah, absolutely.
I had an attraction for him. I haven't studied his material, though.
That's fantastic.
Karma Yoga is required after liberation. After liberation. Although a liberated person has nothing to achieve by Karma Yoga, why not? A liberated person has nothing to achieve. Why not? Because the achiever, the person who's trying to achieve, is identified with the body, the doer, enjoyer, the ego. See, why do you do? Do you do it just to do, or do you do it to enjoy? to enjoy. There's no other option, right? You don't do to suffer, certainly. You do to enjoy the results. If not immediate, then certainly ones that you expect to gain in the future. So that means one does to enjoy. However, that belongs to what? The subtle body. A liberated person is not identified with the causal, the subtle, and the gross or the physical body. Therefore, to them, there is no sense of enjoyer or doer. There's nothing in it for the liberated person, because that's not, I'm not getting that, it's the body that's getting that, right? So that's why it says that they have nothing to achieve by karma yoga. He or she must continue, though, to do right action for the good of the world, because, enlightened or not, everyone has an obligation to the society. Right action is not practiced by the liberated because it is natural to the liberated. Why is it natural? Because one's already done a lot of work. One's already, acknowledged Ishvara. Everything is Ishvara. And so there is no suddenly reason to go and discard, oh, I don't need to do anything. Because think about the separation that that's creating. That means, I am Satya and now everything else is Mithya. What is that? That's just pure denial. That's just pure, that's a misapprehension of this truth. That means a liberated person, even though they don't have nothing to achieve, they still do for the sake of what? Just for the sake of giving. Because as I said, Ishvara is a giver. And so that's why it's natural for them to practice karma yoga. And what is karma yoga? We described it in page 1. Community, service, teaching, whatever it is. Desire and anger management. Okay, let's just share a few points about desire. We spoke briefly about desire. Remember that? Having the desire never ends. It's just about redirecting the desire to an appropriate principle that represents the truth. That means you're always moving towards that principle. The other way is, if you think about it, anything in life, when you master it, this comes back to what I said in the beginning, when you master something, does your desire for it lower in your experience? Right? Yeah. Just like with like dating, for example, we're so passionate about getting that target, getting that objective, and there's a desire. But as soon as we get that, instantly the desire dissipates. Also, even with, let's say, someone wants just to have enough financial support, and there's a lot of desire to that. No different than if they were courting a man or a woman or whatever they're trying to court, and as soon as they master the business, how to make money or how to support themselves, that desire lowers. So that's why I said at the beginning, there's a certain level of qualification in this world that's required, because if these things are not mastered, then there's always that silent thought, yeah, but there could be something, there's like that, you don't share it, but there's some secret thought that's hoping to come to someone else, or someone to save me, or someone to offer me something, to make my life better. There's always that secret thought lurking. And so that means that there's still that slight conflict, and we have to manage that. And one of the ways we manage that is we just see how does a wise person manage that, because I said desires never go. They will still continue. One of the things, this is a self-talk of a wise person, and it's all rationalization. They will say something like, well, what I am attracted to is impermanent, right? It's going to come and go. It's another object known to me. Therefore, without me, the object wouldn't even have a chance to be known for what it is. That means I come first, right? And that means what? The joy that I'm having towards this object is not in the object itself, because if it was, then everyone would feel that same joy towards that same object. But that's not true. Only the person feels that joy. So it has to be another like and dislike. So then the wise person rationalizes and says, well, that's just another like from the past, which is okay. That belongs to the subtle, that belongs to the vasanas, doesn't belong to me, right? Or it's it's a zero-sum game. There is no, whenever I get something, there's an inevitable, loss. Whenever I gain, there's an inevitable loss. Yeah. Whenever I lose, there's an inevitable gain. For example, let's say someone makes a really good deal in like business, and they have, they get, let's say, joint venture, and they get the other partner to, let's say, promote them. And now they think that's a good deal, right? Because now they're getting a lot of money. They're getting all their clients buying the products. But now the person is in a position to fulfill an extremely big amount of orders, which they weren't ready for. And not only that, but now the clients are going to be prone to leaving reviews. So now they have to, customer service has to be a lot faster. Otherwise, if a customer is unhappy, they will leave a negative review, and that other customers look at those reviews, and that decreases the sales. So what initially looked really well actually had that other side to it, which wasn't seen. It was an adrishta. It was unseen. Yeah. So you understand this principle? Zero-sum game. This is usual business, as usual. What that really means is that from your experience, just look at it from your experience. Remember, whenever you wanted something, right, and you got it, was the actual getting as good as your imagined version? So that means a wise person will use things like this. For example, use your memory, use your experience, and bring that feeling into the present, not to be seduced by this desire. Because the seduction happens because we're so stuck in the now. But if you use a little bit of your experience, you will see that even if I get this, it's not going to be as good as I imagine it to be. So that helps you just to lower that drive for it. Yeah. So we're not saying a wise person doesn't have desires. It's just they think like this because they have the knowledge behind it. So they're able to rationalize like this. And I'm sharing it with you. Alrighty. Tamasic desires are desires that require immoral means, like lying, dishonesty, cheating, and immoral ends. They should be dropped immediately. This happened in 2008, right? When we had a crash in the real estate market? Financial market, yeah, was it? Or they were just cheating like crazy, trying to find a back door. I watched the program. I don't remember the details, but it was an example, and the whole world suffered because of that. That's tamas, right? Tamas is that desire. It covers, it veils truth. There's no goodness when there's tamas. It's just me, my egocentric profits. Rajasic desires cause worldly karma. In other words, consequences that keep the jiva earning and spending and responsible for spiritual stagnation. They need to be managed, not eliminated completely. Because if you eliminate the rajas, then you're going to feel tired all the time and not feel like doing anything. That means the rajas has to be balanced. The rajas is that energy that gets you to do things. To mow the grass, to go shopping, to see family, to do whatever it is. So you need that, but not excessive, because excessive then causes, worldly karma that keeps the jiva earning and spending. That means if you go to Silicon Valley and you talk to those guys, the innovators, the creative brains, just achieve, do things, make it big, you will not believe how much energy they have. Just so sharp towards making things happen. Just incredibly good rajas, example. Yeah. So they get a lot of things done. But because there's so much involvement, right? Every time you do something and then you have to address those circumstances. You start a company, now you got to address the customers, you got to address all the circumstances. So that keeps the jiva earning and spending what it earns. Yeah. Sattvic karmas are desires for spiritual growth. They should be nourished. So sattvic karmas, give me some examples. One example of a sattvic action, sattvic karma. Karma means action.
Coming here on a Tuesday evening.
Okay, yeah, good example.
Well, you actually putting this together.
Yeah. Come on, more contributions.
Meditation?
Meditation, certainly. What do you mean by that? Sitting down or just reflecting?
It could be active meditation.
Good, excellent.
In your work?
Yeah, even better.
Yeah, voluntary work.
Voluntary work, yeah. Sattvic karmas are desires for spiritual growth. They should be nourished. That's the ones to... so you just ask yourself, is this bringing harmony in myself? Is this bringing peace in myself? That's likely something that is of the nature of sattvic karma. That's what you nourish. Scriptures, reading the Gita or the Upanishads, incredible sattvic karma.
Or as you said before, worshipping your own deity, just taking
That's right.
effort and energy to do that.
Yeah, yeah, and worshipping also deities and social service, all of that sattvic karmas, because you're offloading that to Ishvara. And when you think of Ishvara, that's automatically sattva. When we think about ourselves, that's automatically rajas. Rajas and tamas destroy discrimination and need to be managed by controlling the senses, mind, and intellect. The senses present objects in the world. The mind dwells on them, like the Buddhist mind was dwelling on the hour ago woman. And the intellect concludes that they are desirable, even if it's desirable worth of mentioning or talking about. If you control your instruments, your physical instruments, talking about your 5 organs of knowledge, your 5 organs of perception. Because wherever you expose your eyes, that you can control. If I expose my eyes to nightclub, then if I come home, like that Buddhist story, I'm going to have nightclub thoughts going on in my mind, which is going to lead me to then maybe take action and follow up on that number that I took, right? And that just causes worldly karma into rajas, which is passion. And then...
I like that description you gave us before about the instruments being the 5 senses of perception, if you like, the eardrums, the eyeballs, the tongue is the instrument.
That's right.
And then the organ is actually the brain, which is
actually the subtle body.
Is the biggest part of
the subtle body.
Yeah.
And so the organ receives where you expose your physical senses to. Yeah. So all we're saying here is take control of where we put our senses. If we put our senses towards the TV, news, right? Good luck. I don't know what's happening in the world, but if you want to know what's happening, just go online, 10 seconds Melbourne Times or something, just to keep up to date. But just constant exposure, movies, even that. If I watch a movie, it stays with me for 30 days, literally. I have just images constantly in me. But the more we get insensitive, tamas and rajas, the more we don't feel that. We just go more, just constant entertainment. So even something as small as comedy movies, something like that, even that just consumes memory or consumes brain power and takes the mind in very subtle ways away from discrimination. I don't mean stop, right? Because I don't think you're going to do that anyway. I'm just saying that think about it.
And also it's the type and the quality of the movies and theatre that you go to, because some of it can inspire you and get you thinking.
Oh yeah, good point.
On the right things.
Yeah, good point.
Just to get back to, I'm a bit of a Shakespeare freak, but that's one of the things that he did, because he was all about dharma and karma, and in common life and experiences that people could relate to, which is why he was so popular in his time. We find it a bit difficult because of the language, but in fact, you can still feel it. You can just feel it.
He said a very good quote. I had it on the wall. If you think you can or you think you cannot, either way, you are right. That was him, huh?
There's thousands of those things, just full of them.
Yeah, I had that on the wall for like 2 years. It says here on the underline, they destroy discrimination and need to be managed by controlling the sense. Okay, let's just stop at rajas and tamas destroy discrimination. See, wherever there is rajas, there is tamas. For example, let's say you're walking and you see a light post at night. And, it's shining down on the street, white light. And and then you think it's a ghost. So what happens is, because I thought it's a ghost, I didn't have full clarity what it actually is. that means the tamas was there. It was covering the full apprehension of the post. So then I mistaken it as a ghost. Now what's that going to produce? An emotion of fear, which is rajas. So that means where there's rajas, where there's tamas, there's automatically rajas, and where there's rajas, it has to be supported by tamas. They're always together, these two energies. And I don't want to get too much into these three gunas because it's a huge topic. It doesn't belong in here as a big conversation. But we're going to talk a lot about these three gunas, how to manage them and how they create. One example I'll give you is that I've said that Ishvara is all knowledge and all power. Remember that? Okay, so now what is all knowledge? Sattva. And what is, now think about, in order to create anything, this is a formula how to create the universe. In order to create anything, you need what? You need knowledge of the universe. You need knowledge of form. You need knowledge of what a tree looks like, how the sun, how much is it going to shine, how far is it going to be from the earth. You need knowledge of the supernova, of the galaxies, of your black holes. You need knowledge of all of that. Sattva. Now, can knowledge alone create? No. You need what? You need some power to take that knowledge and do something with it. But can knowledge and power create? No. You need material. Knowledge, sattva, power, rajas, desire. Rajas is desire. And tamas is that material. So that means that in order for the universe to be created, all knowledge and all power is required. All knowledge, sattva, of everything, all that is, and power meaning both rajas and tamas, which rajas takes the material and creates material into a form based on the knowledge of sattva, based on the knowledge of the know-how. You understand that? Sattva, knowledge, rajas, power, and tamas is the material. Yeah. So now we can tie this into life also, because these three powers, literally, they're like the governing principle of the entire universe. That's why I want to leave it to later section.
We're getting back into metaphysics once we start going on that.
Yeah, it's very interesting actually how it gets, because we also get into how a universe creates using the 5 elements. All right. Now I want to take us into a reference guide and go through some verses that will cover chapter 3. Okay, who is a thief? Here we covered in number 7. Okay, it says here, but I say, okay, honor the gods, honor the 5 elements, or the devas, or the intelligence, all knowledge and all power, that controls the objects within this attitude, with this attitude, and they will, with karma yoga, and they will look after you. It is one true path to liberation. But I say, you are a thief if you take what comes without offering it back to the world. So now we have here a question, and it says, who is a thief? Ishtan bhoganhi vo deva dasyante yajna bhavitaha tairdattana pradayaibhoyo bhunkte stena evasaha. The devas, the gods, as we said, the devas in the previous statement, the 5 elements, nourished by sacrifice, will give you the desired objects. Indeed, he who enjoys objects given by the devas without making offering in return is verily a thief. So think about what this means. Here is a human being who's born in this world, and what is a general, not to depreciate the humanity, but just to as an observation, what is generally a human being doing on earth? Consuming. Like, what else are you doing on earth than just consuming? I want, I don't want. In other words, I want food, I want experience, I want house, I want money, I want moksha, that's all there is. It's just give me. There's no other reason to be on earth unless there's a subtle, silent whisper called give me. So that means that if this attitude persists of take, then we call that a thief. because they're what? They're not giving, unless they're giving, but they're not, if they're not giving back to that field which has contributed all of the things that you now value in your life. Like, think about your life. Everything you value right now, everything that you would say, you know, I really would not want this to leave because I appreciate it in my life, that was given to you. So if one just keeps taking more and more and never pays attention or to give back, or at least to acknowledge the giver, we call that a thief. That means what? I'm taking and I'm claiming it as mine. I made the money. It's my money. My children, are they really your children? What does a mom and dad do? They just, you know, copulate, and then they don't even create the eggs. They don't even spread the eggs from 1 to 2 to 4 to 16. All of that happens by itself. And then the child gets born and goes, my child. Is it really your child? All the person did was just take food, if you think about it, and the food kept the body alive, and then the body, being alive, is able to do what it does, and now all of these activities go, it's my stuff. So one has to start looking at life as being given rather than it's something for me to, you know, to take from. Yeah, thief.
Just one question, just back up.
Yeah.
The connection between the devas and the 5 elements.
Devas are the 5 elements, intelligently put together.
Okay, so you're limiting them to 5 devas altogether? Is that what you're saying?
You know, devas is just referring to different symbols, like the givers of different. You know, you got like Dakshinamurti, giver of knowledge.
I just thought there was more than 5 devas. I thought there were hundreds of devas.
There are hundreds, yeah, yeah. But see, because they're all what? They're Ishvara.
Yeah.
That's actually a good point. You can call them 5 elements, because see, what we mean by devas is everything can be seen as a deva, because everything that's given to you, you what? It's almost like a gift. So it can be also considered as a deva. But also in your case, there's also the, you know, the macrocosmic symbols of the deva, like Dakshinamurti, the giver of knowledge, Ishvara, the giver of everything. Yeah. So it can go both ways. Is that clear? What deva means? That means both objects given to you, but also those symbols which have provided for you, what you have now.
So basically all the devas are representative of the 5 elements?
All the devas belong to Ishvara, and Ishvara has millions of symbolic devas. Giver of health, giver of children, giver of food, giver of food, what? The rain, giver of the light, the sun, giver of...
I guess what I'm trying to say is the devas are on the ethereal level and the 5 elements are on the material level?
No, we're not referring to different worlds now. Okay. And there's no ethereal, there's only now. Mm-hmm. We don't have that model of other worlds. But I know what you mean. Because, you know, we'll come to a diagram where we'll talk about other worlds. Yeah.
I'm just trying to get a picture in my head how that's correct. Can we say that the devas express through the 5 elements? Is that a way?
Yeah, that's another way to say it.
Okay.
Yeah. What prompted Arjuna to ask the following question in the beginning of 3rd chapter? Okay, now we have that J and Y situation. That's Jayasi. See, that's Jayasi. Chet karmanaste mata buddhir janardana tat kim karmani ghore mam niyo jayasi keshava. Okay, if it be that knowledge is superior to action, if it be thought that knowledge is superior to action, that jnana yoga is more superior to karma yoga, then why do you, O Keshava, O Krishna, engage me in this terrible action? This is a contradiction. Krishna said, you know, I'll teach you knowledge, self-knowledge. And then Krishna teaches him karma yoga and says, go and uphold dharma, go and perform your duty, go and fight. Why? I could just sit back and just contemplate on the self. Why are you giving me these 2 parts? So that's where this question comes from. So let's see what it says. Shri Krishna vehemently, does anyone know what that means? Vehemently. fiercely argued against Arjuna's decision to not fight, but to renounce the glory of success and retire to the quietude of the jungle to live there the life of a monk seeking the divine. So that's what Arjuna wanted to do, to go to the jungle as a monk and seek the divine. In his arguments, at one moment, Lord advised Arjuna that it was his duty to work without getting himself preoccupied with its results. Shri Krishna had also warned him, "Let not thy attachment be toward inaction." So that means that Krishna was saying to Arjuna, no, don't be attached towards not acting, because you're not escaping. That you're just you're going first of all towards another like. It's my like to go to the forest, but Shri Krishna realizes that if Arjuna does that, he's not going to be able to move on, because in order to purify Arjuna's mind, remember Bhagavad Gita is in the mind. In order to purify Arjuna's mind, one has to uphold the duty, one has to perform the duty, right? So that means if a like comes in and says, I don't want to do my job, it's much easier to back away from the world and not participate, then ironically it seems easier, doesn't it, on the beginning, but it actually doesn't work, because Arjuna would not be upholding or performing his swadharma, what he was supposed to do, in order to move on and get the self-knowledge completely clearly. Later on, the chapter concluded with the inspired advocacy of the path of knowledge, so jnana yoga. Naturally, Arjuna felt confused as to which of the paths he or she was to follow for self-development. In fact, the arguments raised by Lord Krishna in his discourse create a grave doubt as to which exactly is the path that will take a seeker easily to the realization of the absolute in him or her. This is funny language. Just take the seeker to the final truth. It is either knowledge, jnana yoga, B, karma yoga, C, both together practice parallel, or D is a total renunciation of both, not participating in knowledge nor action. It is this which prompts Arjuna to ask the above. So it's a fair question, because if you get told, hey, here's two paths to liberation, naturally the mind is going to think, well, that's great, but give me the better one. It doesn't work, because see, that question, it doesn't apply. The point of providing jnana yoga and karma yoga and bhakti yoga is to suit your predisposition, your personality type. Some of us do not want to study Upanishads. We don't want to read the Gita. We're more active types, so we need karma yoga. Some of us don't want to even do action. We want to just delve into, revering the Lord all day because we're emotional. Then we need bhakti yoga. In other words, they all take us to the same path. It just depends on what is your personality type. Because everyone comes with a different karma, therefore makes up a different person, therefore has different preferences. Alrighty. Why does the Gita advise a man or woman to act vigorously? Let's find out. Okay, give me some examples. Why do you think that Krishna would advise, the Lord would advise a common man or woman to act vigorously?
So to do it without, to do it with conviction?
Full commitment.
All right, good answer. Let's see. Man is ever agitated under the influence of the triple tendencies of sattva, rajas, and tamas. even sattva can become a big hindrance, by the way. Because, one gets addicted to feeling good all day. Meditation all day. Even for a single moment, he cannot remain totally inactive. Total inactivity is the character of utterly insentient matter. Pronounced dead, in other words, a dead person. That's right. Yeah. Even if we are physically at rest, physically you're resting, mentally and intellectually, we are active all the time. That means even in rest, you're still, the mind's still, even in deep sleep, that's still an action. That's an action of sleeping. So that means there is no inactivity for a man or a woman as long as they're alive.
It's interesting that unactivity and inactivity are different.
Yeah, that's their way. Okay. Unactivity, but it's actually a lot of activity, but activity in alignment with Ishvara. Yeah. This is activity desire, just getting things done, moving.
Because inactivity is going against activity.
Inactivity is just not doing anything. Yeah, it's just lazy. But also you need that for sleep. If you're agitated or excited, good luck sleeping. So long as we are under the influence of these three mental tendencies, the gunas, which we will cover, as I said, much later, we are helplessly prompted to labor and to act. Therefore, not to act at all is to disobey the laws of nature. Think about that. If Arjuna not acted and went to the jungle, that would be equal to being born, giving this life, giving a purpose by Ishvara. Everyone has a duty, and then just not and saying, no thanks, I don't want to fill your duty because for me it's a lot easier to contemplate. In other words, not to act at all is to disobey laws of nature, which will bring about a cultural deterioration within society and within yourself, because you are always a role model for everyone around you. Even how you drive, others are picking that up. We're like children still. You know how children, how they learn? Those of you who had kids, they learn by copying. Yeah, adults are still the same. It's just a lot more subtle.
And driving's a good one because it feels like when you have good manners on the road and people are actually let you pull back and let you in and things like that, it just makes you feel good because, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas someone that just cuts you off and you can see with senseless, they gain nothing.
That's a good example. Do you ever realize that when you actually give way to someone, you feel good? They're kind of, you're filling up the space.
It feels good too because they've been acknowledged,
Yeah, they're filling up the space. They're probably going to get later to your work, but you just feel good. That's what we mean by alignment of Ishvara. You're giving, as opposed to taking my space. Therefore, Gita advises him to act vigorously. Oh, okay. A person... Okay, we'll start. Therefore, not to act is to disobey the laws of nature, which will bring about a cultural deterioration. A person who remains inactive physically will get dissipated in his thoughts. In other words, the mind will die away if you're totally inactive. It was just, if you don't use it, you lose it.
Doesn't that also mean self-esteem?
Remains active will get dissipated in his... Yeah, definitely. The self-esteem will, because I'm not doing anything. I feel useless. And I'm violating Dharma. My Dharma is to act, to be service to Ishvara. Therefore, the Gita advises him or her to act vigorously with the right attitude, so that he may avoid all internal waste of energy and learn to... In other words, so that he may avoid exposing the five organs of action to unnecessary places, which would, like that Buddhists cause that stickiness now hours later, days later. That means that if it's quite an irony, but if you're just busy, right, you're just engaged in your work, it just keeps you really almost content, as opposed to not having anything to do. That time when we're bored, we've got nothing to do, it feels painful, doesn't it? So that means, as I said in the beginning, always having that higher altar ready, because I know how easy it is to when you don't have it instantly available, it's every moment we're bored, the more it grows and the less motivation there is to do something. So it has to be available immediately. Use your phones like a list of things to do. I have that on my phone. As soon as there's some kind of a, well, that happens never now, but when I used to not have anything to do, I just pull out my phone and go, okay, just watch, your favorite YouTube series of teachers that you like. What was the other one? Go and run, exercise, or go and create some poetry to engage the mind, or go and do some memory games on the computer to exercise the intellect. So never letting the intellect off the hook, because as soon as we stop, the mind starts to go into smallness. How does karma yoga become a technique of self-liberation? Okay, examples? How do you think?
It removes the attachment and the doer.
Very good. By withdrawing the organs of perception, our organs of knowledge, from their unprofitable fields of activity. What does unprofitable fields of activity mean? You got it.
Holding you back from growth.
Yeah, unprofitable, that means it doesn't profit your well-being. It's like, it's just going to have a tendency to think about it, and it doesn't profit you. It's not healthy. Withdrawing your perceptions from a big tasty cake or something. No, it's not, it happens because the more people draw, the more they, if you ever discovered there's a food that you like, and if it's available, it's very easy to take it. There's a much bigger tendency to take. That means the availability makes it much harder to say no to. So that means there's a certain aspect of not having it available at all. So that's what I mean by creating a profitable field of activity. But here it says, withdraw from the unprofitable. We save on the inner energy, which would otherwise be spent on discrimination. Satya mithya, reflection. Further, because our inner attitude of non-attachment while working, no new tendencies or vasanas are gathered by our mind. And so what it's saying here is that it's ironic, because if I do not perform karma yoga, then the mind's going to fly towards what it desires, towards its likes and dislikes. And that's going to strengthen those vasanas, those tendencies, which then makes it even harder for the purity of that intellect to discriminate. That means that by performance of karma yoga, then with the attitude of everything is Ishvara, that actually ends up purifying the mind, because you're thinking about, your mind is single-pointedly focused towards one thing. So it doesn't get a chance to fly away. Summary, I put here, engage without expectations. Knowing any result is short-lived anyway, and always 5 elements put together by Ishvara. So how does karma yoga become a technique of self-liberation? Well, by focusing your mind on profitable fields of activity, contemplating to who am I really offering this to? Ishvara. That means the mind's more focused towards that principle, which I am also. And also it prevents new tendencies forming, which produces less tendency for the mind to be externalized towards other things in the world.
So you're actually being in the awareness of what you're doing.
You're being mindful. Yeah, that's karma yoga, mindfulness. That's another way to interpret it. But mindfulness, not just, just focusing your breathing. There's a lot of knowledge going on with karma yoga, as you probably would have figured by now, because it's not just, I'm just being careful. You're thinking about the world as the field of causes and effects. Okay, what is the difference between the activities of the wise and the ignorant? Let's find out. question is, how does a wise act and how does an unwise person act? What's the difference between a wise person and a normal worldly person still entangled, enmeshed in samsara? Everybody works in their own given fields of activity with enthusiasm and deep interest, all day through, every day of the year, and through their entire lifetime. Man is seen to wear himself out in the strain of constant activity. The body wears out. Irrespective of his health, careless of the severity of seasons, through joy and sorrow, man constantly strives to earn and to accumulate, to gain and to enjoy. In other words, the man does this all year round, day after day, to what? To gain, to enjoy, to accumulate. Until one day, the instrument which is gaining, enjoying, and accumulating starts to wear off. And then, because all of my joy depended on gaining, enjoying, and accumulating, since the body can no longer gain, enjoy, and accumulate, my happiness goes right along with it. That's the circumstance of samsara. Self-realization. A man of self-realization also works in the world, no different than a normal person, with as much diligence, persistence, and sincerity, in other words, authenticity, tireless enthusiasm and energizing joy, burning hopes and scalding fears, as any ordinary man striving in the competition of the marketplace. The only difference between the two is that whereas the ignorant acts and is motivated by attachment and an anxiety for expectations for the fruits of my action, a self-realized will work in the world without attachment, only for the purpose of the redemption of the world, only for the purpose of passing down the knowledge or sharing the knowledge of the wisdom. That's the only reason. Or also we have a second reason why, and that is to enjoy the world with this new vision of oneness. Yeah, that's the only two reasons why there is a purpose for a wise person. So the summary here is that unwise, wise, both go through the same worldly problems. There's no exceptions. It's Ishvara Srishti. No one's an exempt from having something better than the other. Ishvara doesn't care whether you're liberated or not. Ishvara's job is to take care of the total. That's the message. So whether one's realized or not, they're still part of the total. They still need to serve the total in order for the total to continue in harmony. The only difference, the unwise, is concerned about what can I get out of this, what can I extract out of this, how can I profit from this, how can I increase my status, my power, my beauty, my wealth, my health. Whereas a wise person is thinking, how can I give? What else can I give? Why? Because the wise person knows I am already whole, full, and complete. Therefore, I can never get depleted, and because of my fullness, I can permanently share, and there is no stopping to it, because there is so much love for Ishvara, for creation, and for Ishvara giving me this knowledge that I am now endued to offer that back to the whole world as much as one can. Yeah. How should a wise person guide his or her generation? Let no wise man unsettle the minds of ignorant people who are attached to action. In other words, I am the doer, I am the enjoyer. He or she should engage them in all actions, himself fulfilling his duties with devotion. Okay, let's read what it says and we'll speak. No wise man should unsettle his generation's firm faith in action. He must himself or herself diligently perform the ordinary actions in a diviner and better fashion. He must make himself an example to the world, just like parents are example to their children, so that the lesser folk may automatically imitate him and learn to follow his unfaltering footsteps. So what it's saying here is that do not disturb the minds of those who are not ready to hear this. Because their belief, right from day one, were taught, I am the doer, I am the enjoyer. Look at the world. It's all about doing, isn't it? Why do people do? To enjoy. And who's the enjoyer? The ahankara, the ego. The ownership, the one who takes ownership of that enjoyment is the ego. And that I is linked to that ego. Therefore, the more I do, the more I'm going to enjoy. Therefore, since the I is the ego, the doer enjoyer, therefore I enjoy. Yeah? So that means that if one starts to prematurely start teaching this, then that actually ends up only turning them off even further from investigating this potentially in the future when the time is right. So that means that do not disturb the minds of those who are still, sincerely doing the best they can. And we're not insulting them, because if you think about it, everything you have right now is because of people like this. Doctors, they don't, probably not into this, but doctors, like when I get, if you get sick or I get sick, we go to the doctor. Or let's say those people who extract oil from the ground, we think, oh, they're just dirty jobs. Well, the car uses your oil and your petrol. So that means that we just simply, understand that when the time is right, Ishvara will bring him the teaching to move them on. But it's not your job to kind of interfere or intercept or say, let me teach you. Let me tell you what I think is right. Okay, what is the notion of the ignorant man while acting? All actions are performed by the Gunas. The ignorant man, deluded by egoism, thinks, I am the doer. Okay, let's summarize this. What is the notion of the ignorant man while acting? Summary. The notion is that constantly running in the background is, I am doer. And why am I doing? To enjoy. Therefore, the more I do, the more I enjoy. The more money I make as a doing, the more I get to enjoy the money. The more I get to travel, that's a doing, the more I get to enjoy.
I am the creator.
I am the creator of my doing, so I'm going to create my experience to enjoy my experience. Yeah. Okay, let's talk about a formula how to fail. Who are doomed to destruction? It's strong words here. Don't take it so seriously. Who are doomed for samsara continuity, in other words. But those who carp or object to or disagree with see what the capital M? When you see that, that means, Krishna is speaking, the Lord is speaking. Same in the Bible, when Jesus speaks, I am the way. People think Jesus is the way, but Jesus is speaking on the behalf of Ishvara. Same thing here. That's why we have the Bhagavad Gita Dvaita group. They also think that's means Krishna. So that means that when I die, I'm going to join Krishna one day in heaven. Same thing. This Dvaita is everywhere, this misconception. But those who object at my teaching of Karma Yoga and do not practice it, deluded in all knowledge, relative knowledge, that means what I know relatively is all there is to this world, and devoid of discrimination between real and the unreal, know them to be doomed to destruction. In other words, to die and be reborn again. Just doomed to destruction, rephrase that. Okay, so let's formula how to fail. Do actions without being grateful. In other words, do actions while expecting results according to what I want. Step 2, think that all you know is all there is to know, and be proud of that knowledge. Step 3, do not reflect what is real and what is unreal. In other words, just be with the changing. Don't think about what is non-changing. and you will fail. Yeah. So we know now what not to do. Okay. Even a man, a karma yogi, is going to say a man of knowledge. It's not saying, it's not a capital K, it's a small k. So a karma yogi, a man of knowledge of karma yoga, acts in accordance with his own nature. Explain. This is very important. This is going to tell you why it is not so easy, because it's easy to talk about conforming to dharma, but sometimes we'll know in our own experience we still perform out of alignment with what we know to be right. We act in contradiction to our own good opinion about ourselves. So why? Let's find out. Even the man of knowledge of karma yoga, of Ishvara, of what is right, what is wrong, of living a sincere, good life, even that person acts in conformity with his own nature, which is determined by the pattern of thoughts, vasanas, that arise in him. At any given instant of time, each one of us is determined by the thoughts that are in us at that moment, by our vasanas, of course, because they dominate what thoughts are going to arise. And the thoughts in us always get patternized by the channels of thinking. In other words, the way you think, that's how one's going to keep thinking. Designed by the thoughts which we had entertained in the past. Just like the Buddhist story. There's a tendency, so it continues. The nature of each individual is decided by the style of thinking which each is capable of. The man of knowledge mentioned here indicates one who has read and understood thoroughly the technique of action as explained in this chapter, Karma Yoga. Even when he knows the technique, the Lord says that it is not easy for him or her to follow it. So the Lord acknowledges this. Because his or her mind is designed to carry his thoughts through egocentric and selfish channels, ever panting to gain some desires. In other words, ever chasing to gain some desires based on likes and dislikes. Because of these past impressions, vasanas, even an honest student finds it hard to practice this simple looking technique of action in his life. So what it's saying here is, don't feel guilty if you come out of the class and here you are in the world, I don't know, but just an example, and one's clearly doing something that one would usually regret, or they know to be inappropriate or wrong or dirty or just tamasic. Because see, these patterns are so strong, they're like roots. Think about a root of a tree, right? Or grass. If you go over, right, and you try to pull grass, what's going to happen? You're going to break off the top, but you're not going to get the roots out. Yeah? Because the roots are so firmly rooted that it takes a lot more effort to get the roots out. So that means even sometimes when we try to pull these vasanas out, it still seems like nothing's really happening because they're so deeply rooted. So that means that's the point where you need jnana yoga now, because one shouldn't take it personally. Realize that these vasanas do not belong to you in the first place. They're impersonal. They're given to a body called the jiva, and they're assigned, and because I am linked to these vasanas, I take on the burden. But actually these vasanas do not belong to you.
They belong to the past karmas.
They belong to past karmas, yeah. And they belong, and think about it this way, you didn't choose to be grown up in a family. Let's say the family was abusive. You didn't choose that, right? Like, who's going to grow up and say, I want an abusive dad and a mom. I want to be bullied in school. And I want to have a scar that my self-esteem is is not good at all. Nobody chooses that. That means we're innocently exposed to these circumstances which cause and build these tendencies to think in certain ways about the world, about people, about how much I trust, how much I don't trust, whether I like someone, whether I don't like someone. All of that is innocently, you could say, rooted, not even out of your own choosing. So that means sometimes we need to just, take it easy on ourselves and recognize that, okay, I know what is good, I know what is wise, but still, I keep doing what is not so wise, which is okay. Just keep doing the best you can in that moment, but don't take it hard on yourself.
It sounds very much like the Christian concept of forgiveness.
Yeah,
in this
very much.
case, it's forgiving yourself rather than having the intermediary of a
beautiful.
or a priest or something like that. You go to them to have that mediated, whereas this is sort of teaching you be easy on yourself because it's deeply rooted, the patterns that
Yeah, it's giving the logic why. The forgiveness says just forgive, but here tells you why to forgive. Because if you had control, if you had total control, you could select the best environment, but we didn't. Yeah, and that's just observable phenomena. No one can deny that.
In fact, that was the whole point of Christ's birth and incarnation in the world, was that concept. To bring that concept of forgiveness to humanity.
Right.
Yeah.
And the church got hold of it.
Yeah.
All right.
The rest is history.
Okay, we'll close with this final. So we're just on time. This is the final statement. How is desire conquered? Desire is conquered by the knowledge of the self, not relative knowledge. You know that, right? We're not talking about relative knowledge. We're talking about self-knowledge. I know who I am. Knowledge of the self as me. This is made clear in the following verse. Thus, knowing him, capital H, who is superior to intellect, and restraining the self, the small self, by the capital self, slay you, O mighty armed, the enemy in the form of desire, no doubt hard indeed to conquer. Desire is in no doubt is desire hard to conquer. Now, why is the only solution to desire, the only real solution is self-knowledge? Why is that? No amount of therapy is going to do it, because if therapy did work, then people wouldn't be going on to therapies over and over again.
To be able to watch the desires rising in you and be aware of where they're going and how the fulfillment is.
Yeah.
Leads to eventually disappointments and some form of suffering.
Yeah, that's a good one. In other words, you're not taking it personally anymore, because these desires don't belong to me in the first place. It goes back to what I was saying, the vasanas, because vasanas are what generates desires. So that means when the knowledge of the self is firm, then despite these desires occurring like any other time, they're just known not to be mine. So one doesn't take it personally anymore. It's fine. That's why there's no more concern to try to fix things. Because what are you trying to fix things what is not real in the first place? See, because desires are changing anyway. And I'm trying to change something that wasn't given, that I didn't create. If I created karma and the concept of causal body, then it stands to reason I should fix it. But I didn't create anything. That means the only real solution is to know oneself as the unchanging I. And then all of these desires, they still, of course, they're all lower. Because why? Because the knowledge of the self is so firm, so constant, that one is just not interested in what? Pursuing the world. Which means what? Why do we pursue the world? Because I feel incomplete. Because I feel empty. I feel small. That means when self-knowledge is permanent, one recognizes themselves as, which is already present, as full, as complete, as whole. Therefore, that negates the motivation to go to the world as a form of desire in order to get things to complete myself. You see the logic there? I'm complete, I'm whole, therefore there is nothing the world can give me. For that reason, self-knowledge is the ultimate solution to solving endless oncoming desires. Sarve bhavantu sukhinaha, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May all be happy, may all be free from illness, may all behold good things, may no one suffer.